Alright, welcome back. So today I'm going to be doing my TI10 group stage predictions. Of course, I did my day one group stage preview earlier today. You can find that on my channel if you're at all interested in anything fantasy or at the schedule for day one of the group stage. So I'm going to be running through this list. Of course, this is all just personal opinion. I'm going to be doing my best to give my explanation for each placement on here. But there are going to be some controversial picks, so just keep in mind that this is all just personal opinion, and I'm not expecting to be 100% right about any of this. That's the whole point of a controversial pick, is that I'm kind of going out on a limb on a few of these picks here. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing this a little bit different from what you guys might be used to if you're at all a fan of this channel. This board is pretty much empty right now. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be running through each team and each group, and I'm going to be going and placing them throughout this board. And as opposed to most lists where you start at the bottom and you make your way through the top, I'm actually going to be starting at the top of each group, making my way down the bottom. And that's just because I think the lower you get in the groups, the higher the stakes. And so it's going to be more interesting if I leave the last team to be eliminated from the group for the end of the video, or for the end of that group. So yeah, with that being said, I'm just going to jump into it, and I'll be going with my predictions, which I've already written down on a piece of paper right here. So I've already kind of run through this list a few times, and I've definitely cemented on what I personally think is going to be going on. But again, all opinion. So starting with Group B. The top team in Group B, I'm anticipating, is going to be a team that has given me no reason to doubt them. It is actually my top pick to win this international, and that's PSG LGD. This team doesn't seem to have a weakness at all. They have consistently improved their scores throughout the year. Of course, they finished 4th place in the first DPC season, and they made their way up to 3rd, 2nd, and 1st place finally at the last major. These guys don't struggle in group stage. These guys don't struggle on the main stage. There's really just solid players, solid performance all around. And that's why they're my top pick for winning this international, and they're my top pick for Group B. Next up on the list, we have my first controversial pick of the video, and that's actually Elephant. I'm anticipating Elephant does quite well for themselves in this group. They have traditionally struggled against other Chinese teams, which they have 2 of in this group. However, I think they're a lot better than a lot of people might be giving them credit for. I think that a lot of people aren't really familiar with Team Elephant. They just barely missed the cut for both majors this year, but they are the stack with Somnus and FY. And any sort of team at TI that has FY on it, I am going to very highly rate. FY is a TI performer, and I'm anticipating that they do well for themselves. I'd be actually more surprised if Elephant didn't make group stage, upper bracket, sorry. I think maybe finishing 2nd place is a bit high. That's just my opinion again, but I think they're going to make upper bracket for sure. Next up on my list, another very popular pick for winning this international for some, because they had such a dominant year. Pretty much ever since the pandemic started, these guys have been on fire, just up until the very end, where they kind of had a little bit of a weak tournament, and that's of course Team Secret. These guys have looked incredible. I think that's even an understatement. I think every single player on their roster is in contention for top player for that position. And yeah, they had a little bit of a weak tournament, but that can't really overlook everything that they've done throughout the past year and a half. Even before TI9 and TI8 and stuff, they've been favorites going in. They've had a little bit of a weak run at TIs, but they have been one of the top picks for winning an international for a very long time, and I don't see why these guys would not make upper bracket. Next up on my list, and the last team that I'm anticipating will make it through the upper bracket from Group B. This might be a controversial pick for some, but it is a team that I have been openly expecting to do well on my channel, and that is Quincy Crew. I think they're a little bit underrated just because of the region that they're coming from, but they have been consistently competitive with teams before. They have unfortunately not done very well for themselves in majors, in the 2 majors that we had this year, but I think this is going to be their breakthrough tournament. There's a few teams on this list that didn't traditionally do well in the majors, but I think they're going to break through. Quincy Crew is one of them. They, as a stack, of course, not under the name Quincy Crew at previous TIs. They've been to the last 2 TIs. They've made it to the upper bracket in both of them. They've just unfortunately had to play against OG in the first round of both of them. So I think that this year, even though that is possible, OG is in the opposite group, which means it's possible that they meet in the upper bracket in round 1 again. I think this is the year that they break through and make it to the upper bracket once again, and then actually win a series from there. Yeah, so that's my last team making it through the upper bracket for Group B. As for the lower bracket, I am anticipating that this is going to be Team Spirit. I think they are going to just barely miss the cut for the upper bracket. They are a very solid team. Any team with Toronto Tokyo on it, I'm going to praise quite well. Of course, we haven't seen Toronto Tokyo at a TI yet, but he is such a dynamic and fun player to watch, and that goes for the rest of the roster too. Toronto Tokyo is just my personal favorite player on the team, and I'm super excited to watch Team Spirit. I think they're going to break through. Of course, they've been overshadowed by the other team from the region, Virtus Pro, thus far, but they have done better than Virtus Pro at previous majors. And that's why I'm really, really excited to watch Team Spirit. And I'm really, really hoping that they do well. So I have them finishing top of the lower bracket in Group B. Just underneath them, another Chinese powerhouse team that I'm not rating nearly as high as some of the other teams from China this year, but that is Vichy Gaming, another very, very solid team that I can see making the upper bracket, but I personally have them in the lower bracket. They are a team that is very hot and cold. When they're on and they're winning games and they're looking good, but when they're off, it can look very, very rough. And that goes for the next team on the lower bracket as well, Beast Coast. Beast Coast is the team that really relies on momentum. You know, when they're hot, they're good, they're winning games, they're looking good, they're stomping games against some of the best teams even. But I'm a little skeptical about them because of that. You know, which Beast Coast are we going to be seeing this year? Are we going to be seeing the team that is super dominant, that just clowns on everyone? Or are we just going to see the Beast Coast that has been utterly mediocre in the majors that we've had this year? Of course, they didn't play in the Singapore major. They withdrew, but they did play in the We Play Anna major, and they looked pretty weak. Again, if they can rekindle that fire that they had in TI9 when they went on that run with Team Infamous, I think they'll have a good shot. But for now, I have them in the lower bracket. And yeah, so we are down to the last two teams now of Group B. This one is a little bit of an up in the air, but I did end up going with Fnatic for making it through the lower bracket. I think Fnatic is a pretty underrated team. Definitely not one of the top teams of this group, but I think they're still pretty solid. I'm anticipating that they make it through the lower bracket, and that means that the only team I'm anticipating getting knocked out from this group is SG Esports. SG Esports has not made it to either majors. They've also struggled against other teams from the region. Namely, Beast Coast has beat them twice now, 2-0, in both seasons of the DPC. And so I just can't see any way that SG Esports is going to be able to win enough series or win enough games to make it out of this group stage. So that does it for my Group B. Now moving on to Group A. Again, same thing with Group B. I think there is one just powerhouse of this group, a contender for winning this international. There's a few of them in this group actually, but my number one pick for finishing top of this group is another team that has given me no reason to doubt them thus far, other than the grand finals, and that is Evil Geniuses. They have looked competitive, they have looked dominant, and they have not struggled against any team from any particular region at all. The only thing that they really struggle with is grand finals, and that is not a team in general. So I'm really hoping that RTZ and the group can overcome it this year. For now, I have them finishing top of the group, as they traditionally have done very well for themselves in group stages as well. Next up on the list, another contender for top of the group and for just the title in general, and that's Invictus Gaming. Of course, these guys won the Singapore major in dramatic fashion. They had the infamous question mark from Emo. But overall, I think these guys are still one of the best teams from China, even though they had a little bit of a lukewarm showing at the second major. It may look like that on the surface. They got eliminated in the wildcard stage, but they were playing with a sub, and they still almost made it. It was brought to tiebreakers against Team Nigma, who just, at that point, was looking unstoppable. So it was kind of unfortunate for Invictus Gaming, but I still think these guys are one of the best teams from China, probably the second best team from China coming into this tournament, just ahead of Elephant and just beneath PSG LGD. So I'm anticipating that they do very well for themselves, and I'm going to be picking a lot of players from IG for my fantasy. So don't act surprised when you see a lot of IG players on my fantasy, and that goes for any team that I have at the top of my groups here. Next up, a little bit of a controversial pick. I have Virtus Pro here, and I say controversial because yes, they have done well for themselves in their own region, and they've done very well for themselves, so well that they even handicap themselves in the drafting stage when they're playing in their own region, just to make games more difficult for themselves. They have struggled in both majors. They've started in the upper bracket for both majors. They lost immediately, and I think in both majors combined, they've only won one series. But I think this is Virtus Pro's breakthrough tournament. I'm anticipating that they make upper bracket. They may not win their first series in the upper bracket, but I'd be very, very surprised if they either make lower bracket or get knocked out early in the tournament. I think this is their breakthrough tournament. I think there's a lot of fun players to watch on there, and I'm really hoping that they do well, because again, just like Team Spirit, the other team from the region, they are a super fun team to watch. and super young too. Team Spirit and Virtus Pro both have super young rosters. So even if they don't go far in this tournament, all of this is a really great experience for a really good run in the future. Next up, probably the most controversial pick, just because of the fact that they had such a mediocre year, but I'm still praising them, and that's OG, because OG has really given me no reason to doubt them thus far at TIs. They've had very lukewarm seasons leading up to TI for the past 3 DPC seasons now, and they've still managed to win their past 2 TIs. So while I don't think OG is going to finish top of their group, they could. They are still in contention for finishing really anywhere in this group. I have no idea how OG is going to do this year with their new roster and just the fact that it's TI, but I just can't doubt them. I just have to give them an upper bracket spot, and so that's why I have them at number 4 in Group A. And number 5 here is a team that I really wanted to put in the upper bracket, but just because I ran out of spaces and because this group is so good, I had to put them in the lower bracket, and that's T1. T1 had a really good showing at the We Play Animajor, where they finished, I believe, 3rd place. It could have been 4th place, but I think it was 3rd place. And yeah, they just have looked really solid. I think 23 Savage is one of the best carry players in the world. And again, I would put them in the upper bracket, but I just didn't have the space. But I think T1 is in contention for finishing top 6 for sure. Even if they start in the lower bracket, I think these guys should make top 6. And anything less than that would be disappointing for them. Next up, another team from South America, Thunder Predator. Thunder Predator is a team that did pretty well for themselves, actually. In the Singapore Major, not a lot of people, whether that be talent or teams, were really expecting a whole lot from them, and then they went on a little bit of a lower bracket run there. So, yeah, I think Thunder Predator personally is my top pick for South America's most likely candidate to go far in this tournament. And I'm just really excited to see how they do, because of course they missed out on the We Play Animajor, so we haven't seen them play against any other team from any other region for quite some time now, but I do think that they are the best team from South America when it comes to playing against other teams from other regions. When it comes to strictly South American Dota, I think Beast Coast takes it, but Thunder Predator is just better overall at playing against other teams from other regions. Next up on the list, another Chinese powerhouse team that I just had to put in the lower bracket because I am a little skeptical about it. Just like some other teams on this list, they have done very well for themselves in their own region, but they have struggled on the main stage of tournaments, and that is Team Aster. Aster, I'm not. It's hard to say because there are some teams that have struggled that I've put high up in the group stage because I'm anticipating that it's going to be their breakout year. I can't really say the Aster, same thing for Aster. It's entirely possible that they do. I am just personally not feeling it, and this is where my own personal opinion comes into it, and why, you know, I could be wrong or some other people might disagree with me, but I personally have Aster finishing in the lower bracket. Not saying that they're a bad team or anything like that, but I just see some more likely candidates for the upper bracket for me for Aster. I don't really have anything bad to say about them. So yeah, they finished at my number 7. So that leaves me with 2 final teams for Group A. And for some of you guys from that watch Dota and watch the Western European region in general, you might be a little bit confused on why I haven't named your team yet, and that's Team Alliance. I have them finishing at the bottom of the lower bracket slot. Personally, I think Alliance is a little bit overrated this year. They finished top of their region in Season 2, but that was, in my opinion, because they had found a loophole where they're able to have a coach during the game, which is a huge difference. Having an outsider's perspective live in game, namely one as good as your coach, because coaches are usually very experienced players and know how to keep a team cool, calm, and collected. So they had a coach for the entire second season, which is why I think they finished top of their region, but then really struggled in the main stage of the tournament because they got immediately eliminated. They have struggled at both of the tournaments thus far, despite doing very well in their region. So yeah, I think Alliance is a little bit overrated. That's just my personal opinion. I would love to see them do well. I really like a lot of the players on Alliance. I just think that they're a little bit outclassed this year, but again, just my opinion. And so of course that leaves me with one last team from Group A, and that's Team Undying. And nothing against Team Undying. I think they're just a little bit outclassed. They have been quite competitive in their region, which is North America. They've consistently done well, or at least given EG and Quincy Crew a hard time. They've just barely missed out on both majors this year, so we don't know how they're going to do against other teams from other regions. But Undying did not drop a single game in their run through the qualifiers to get here. They're a very strong team. I just personally think they're a little bit outclassed this year. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Of course, this is, again, like I've mentioned numerous times, just my opinion. Who do you guys think is going to get eliminated from each group? Who do you think is going to end up somewhere different than where I ended up putting them on the list this year? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below as always. Again, if you want to see my preview that I made for day one of the group stage, as well as my fantasy picks for day one of the group stage, I've already posted all that on my channel. Be sure to check that out, and please be sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss any more content. I'm going to be at least double uploading every single day for the next week and a half. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you tomorrow.